For all you elk hunters out there, chasing turkeys is basically the same thing. I know the reaction you just gave me, but don't knock it till you try it, and don't try it without OnX. The Hunt app will not only help you find new areas on public ground, but I use it to find out landowner info to get permission on private ground that I see birds on as well. OnX Hunt has a special offer for you. Use code CAL to receive 20% off your membership at onxmaps.com/hunt and find more birds this spring.
There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store, or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today. I'm sure a lot of you guys remember the old ceremonial hunting tradition of eating the heart out of the first animal you kill. Meat from those organs are among the most nutrient-rich foods on the planet. You can get those same benefits your ancestors craved via convenient daily capsules from Heart and Soil. Find out more at heartandsoil.co. And remember, use code MeatEater for 10% off your purchase.
From MeatEater's World News Headquarters in Bozeman, Montana, this is Cal's Weekend Review presented by Steel. Steel products are available only at authorized dealers. For more, go to steeldealers.com. Now, here's your host, Ryan Cal Callahan.
Japan's famous vending machines sell everything from flowers to fish to bread to eggs, but one enterprising restaurant just took things up a notch. Residents of Semboku, Japan, can now purchase bear meat from a vending machine outside the local bullet train station. The raw steaks come in a frozen 250-gram package, and customers can choose between lean and fatty options that cost about $17 US. The local proprietors told the Japanese newspaper, the Mainichi, that they sell between 10 and 15 packages a week. The bear meat is sourced from a local hunting club that harvests bears from the surrounding mountains. We covered in episode 194 how depopulation in rural areas is causing conflicts with wild animals like deer and wolves. Bears are hunted in part to mitigate these conflicts, and the meat is mainly sold to tourists as a kind of souvenir from the Akita Prefecture, a mountainous province in northern Japan. It is illegal in North America to sell most kinds of game meat and parts because we know how market hunting nearly wiped out many of these species. But that doesn't seem to be a worry in Japan. Very few Japanese people hunt, and the bear population is growing. The owner of the bear meat vending machine also says that this product is limited by hunting restrictions. Once his supplies run out, they won't be restocked again until the hunting season resumes in June. Would you eat bear meat from a vending machine? Let me know by writing in to ASKCAL. That's askcal@themeateater.com. And again, if you have a good hunting hookup in Japan, let me know. We'll come on over. Film a show.
Let's go.
This week, we've got winter weekends, spring kills, USDA snipers, legislation, and so much more. But first, I'm going to tell you about my week. In my week, it's always interesting. Bought a new truck. It's 2005 with only 134,000 miles on it. And probably needs a new bumper and a few other things, but finances are tight. So if anyone is interested in a 2009 Toyota Tundra with 210,000 miles on it, runs fantastic. Couple of dents. Cosmetically, I've never been one to be real, it's a working man's truck. Also, if you have a recommendation on a good front bumper for a Chevy, please write in. On top of that, I'm writing to you from the Big Island, Hawaii, where I am hunting turkeys with my buddy Danny Bolton. We've been preserving it all on film, just for you. It's been a lot of fun, and I never thought I would ever call in a turkey while seated against a banana tree, but we can cross that off the list. Also, I decided to shoot a peacock that made a poor decision, which is a really long-tailed and slightly bigger pheasant. I have it in a brine right now. It looks really tasty, super fatty, and I am so sad Snort wasn't here to retrieve it. Instead, she is, as I have been told, killing and consuming ground squirrels back in Bozeman, which I am also told do not agree with her insides. On a gear-related note, I'm wearing the new Trace shirt and pant from First Light over here. Interesting material, it's full of holes. On purpose, full of holes. Very comfortable in the hot and humid late morning, as well as the extremely wet and hot afternoons. Seems to be holding up great in the thorns and lava rock too. Check it out at thefirstlight.com. That's the current events. Last weekend, I hit the Brush for Bucks event, held by the crew over at Hush, First Light, Idaho Fish and Game, and new for this year, the Mule Deer Foundation. Thank you to everyone who volunteered. We raised another $20,000 and planted 30,100 sagebrush and bitterbrush starts in prime mule deer winter range. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You warm my heart and give me hope for the future. I mean it. It was super awesome. Met a bunch of good folks. One fella from Mountain Home had his daughter out there who couldn't have been 11. And she stayed out there all day and helped her dad plant a bunch of these starts, and it was super cool. Super cool. I asked him about it, and he said, I just wanted her to know what this part of hunting was about. Very cool. Anyway, we're moving on to the long winter desk. Last week, we covered how Colorado Parks and Wildlife is considering significant reductions to hunting licenses due to higher than usual animal mortality this winter. Colorado isn't the only western state taking proactive steps to protect its wild animal populations. It's been a long, cold winter in the west this year, and the animals are hurting. In Wyoming, the state's game and fish director said at a recent town hall meeting that they're seeing especially high mortality from Pinedale to Rock Springs in the southwestern part of the state. He reported 50% mortality of adult pronghorn in the region, about 30% adult deer mortality, and about 90% fawn mortality. In his words, quote, almost all of the fawns are gone. In Utah, the Division of Wildlife Resources has closed 24 wildlife management areas to help protect wintering deer in the northern and central parts of the state. There are a total of 194 WMAs, but these 24 will be closed through the end of April. WMA is a wildlife management area, for those of you who do not know. Deer rely on fat reserves to get through the winter, but those fat reserves are more quickly depleted by repeated, ongoing human-caused disturbances. You should perk your ears up if you've ever heard the words non-consumptive user. If they're constantly having to run away from the sound of an ATV, hiker or shed hunter, or backcountry skier, they get weaker and weaker and eventually die. This, by the way, is why the distinction between consumptive and non-consumptive public land users doesn't make a whole lot of sense. A backpacker isn't taking an animal off the landscape, but he or she still has an impact on wildlife. Anyway, the Utah DWR, which is the Department of Wildlife Resources, said in a press release that they're seeing high mortality rates among does and fawns in portions of the state with low temps and high snowfall. Obviously, this doesn't bode well for the upcoming hunting season, but we'll see where the population estimates land as the weather warms up, if it ever does. Utah, Idaho, Wyoming, and Colorado have all established emergency feeding programs to help restore fat reserves and keep animals away from ranches and roadways. In Idaho, for example, approximately 30 tons of deer feed is currently being distributed to 23 authorized feed sites. Between 1 and 2 tons of hay is being distributed at each elk feed site each day. Winters dictate these populations as much or more than any other factor. A string of mild winters can allow a population to explode, while a winter like this one can set it back for years. It's still too early to tell exactly how this winter will impact deer and elk numbers, and different areas of each state will see different impacts. Winter feeding programs are hard to pull off well. These ungulates go into a type of preservation mode late in the season. Their bodies are designed to live on very low calorie intakes. So, when somebody decides to throw out a big bale of alfalfa, a high energy food source, this can actually kill animals. Even at these feeding sites administered by professionals, a percentage of those animals will die because their bodies are just bringing on too many calories and it screws up their digestion and a bunch of other things. Anyway, don't go feeding animals, is what I'm saying, okay? Leave that to the pros, and understand that feeding programs are not a solution to a rough winter. They're only going to help a small percentage of animals. All right? Moving on, not by coincidence, to the coyote desk. While western states struggle to protect their ungulate populations, most other places in North America are trying to figure out how to shrink their coyote packs. In California, the city of Belvedere in Maine County has considered hiring federal snipers to cull its exploding coyote population. Belvedere has some of the best views of the San Francisco Bay and some of the area's most expansive homes. Turns out, coyotes also appreciate a good view of the bay, and dozens have moved into the small island community. Local media reported in early March that there have been 71 coyote sightings and pet attacks since October. One resident told the outlet that her dog, named Baby, was abducted by one of the wild canines. The coyote snatched Baby from her fenced yard, and one of her neighbors saw it carrying the small dog down the street. Baby's red sweater, hanging from the large dog's mouth, was a good indicator as to who the dog was. And not to defend the coyote, but I can see how putting a red sweater on a dog might make it both popular on Instagram and an attractive target. Anyway, residents are demanding that the city do something to address this problem. Mike Rowe, who you may remember as the host of the hit show Dirty Jobs, spoke up at a city council meeting to tell about a recent encounter with a coyote. Apparently, it went after his dog and he had to kick it in the head, which is pretty on brand for Rowe. The city has said that it has contracted the USDA Wildlife Service, which uses poison, traps, and snipers to cull coyote populations, but it is also working with Project Coyote, an animal rights group, to explore other non-lethal options. The city's latest official statement came in a March 15th press release. They say they are exploring management options in developing a coyote response team of volunteers and first responders. They also urged residents to eliminate anything from their yard that may be an attractant. This includes food meant to feed birds, squirrels, and feral cats. They also recommend fencing fruit trees and keeping dogs and cats inside unless under a human's direct supervision. The small island community of Nahant, Massachusetts, is also dealing with an influx of aggressive coyotes. There are an estimated 12 coyotes in the 1 square mile village, and city officials say there have been at least 3 incidents of coyotes attacking dogs while the owners walked them on a leash. In most places, with such a high density of coyotes, trappers would be able to make short work of the problem, but Massachusetts law prohibits any kind of trap except a box trap, which according to the town has only trapped 3 coyotes in the last 10 years, across the entire state. Recreational hunting is prohibited given the close proximity of houses, and state law forbids the relocation of aggressive coyotes. The town brought in those same USDA snipers they're thinking about hiring in Belvedere, but so far they haven't made much of an impact. The town reported in early March that even using spotlights and thermal and night vision optics, the snipers have only taken 1 coyote in 2 visits since November. Even after this underwhelming performance, the town has decided to extend its agreement with the USDA for an additional year. Officials in Saskatchewan, Canada, are taking a different approach to their coyote problem. Several rural municipalities have placed a $20 bounty on coyotes after residents reported seeing packs of 15 or more dogs in residential areas. Weyburn, Estevan, and Simerick are among the municipalities in the province's southeast that are offering the bounty, and officials say the response has been mostly positive. Low pelt prices have muted trapping activity, and the deep snow is containing cattle with new calves in small areas. Ranchers are reporting increased coyote damage, and these municipalities need a way to incentivize hunters and trappers to remove more of them from the landscape. At $20 per coyote, it wouldn't be too hard to pay for your food and gas on a good weekend hunt. Coyote management at the local level can take many forms, but most states allow some kind of year-round hunting. The Maine state legislature is considering several coyote bills this year, one of which would make Maine one of the most restrictive coyote hunting states in the nation. This bill, LD 814, would slash the hunting season in half by limiting daytime coyote hunting from October 1st to March 31st and nighttime hunting from December 16th to March 31st. Dozens of people commented at the April 3rd hearing on the bill, including the Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. They testified in opposition. They said the population is abundant under the current season schedule, and they worried that if the season was set legislatively, they wouldn't be able to respond effectively to population changes and hunter participation. On the other end of the spectrum, another coyote bill, LD 604, would improve the clarity and consistency of coyote night hunting by having it begin on the Monday immediately following the close of the muzzleloader-only deer season. Right now, night hunting season begins on December 16th, which can sometimes create a waiting period after the end of deer season. If you'd like to weigh in on either bill, get in touch with your Maine state representative. We'll have these up at themeateater.com/Cal, as well as a bunch of other good stuff you should know about. For all you elk hunters out there, chasing turkeys is basically the same thing. I know the reaction you just gave me, but don't knock it till you try it, and don't try it without OnX. The Hunt app will not only help you find new areas on public ground, but I use it to find out landowner info to get permission on private ground that I see birds on as well. OnX Hunt has a special offer for you. Use code CAL to receive 20% off your membership at onxmaps.com/hunt and find more birds this spring.
Now, a lot of you guys are familiar with the old hunting tradition of eating, some organ, the heart or a chunk of liver off the first animal you kill. I had that when I was a little kid, and it was a big deal. Organ meats were always prized by frontier people who knew the importance of getting a lot of different minerals and nutrients. And as often is the case, those guys were onto something, because organs are among the most nutrient-rich foods on the planet. And you can get the same benefits your ancestors craved via convenient daily capsules from Heart and Soil, made exclusively from regeneratively raised, grass-fed, and finished cattle. Heart and Soil's unique freeze-drying process means all those important nutrients are trapped in, ensuring you experience every one of the benefits of nature's superfood in a clean, convenient, taste-free capsule. Find out more at heartandsoil.co. And make sure to use code MeatEater for 10% off your purchase. That's heartandsoil.co. Use the code MeatEater. You ever get that feeling you're stuck inside staring at screens and a primal urge kicks in? You crave wide open spaces, fresh air, the chance to connect with the land? Well, maybe it's time to find your own piece of the wild, but searching for property can be a maze. That's where Land.com comes in. They got millions of listings across the country, from mountain ranches to hidden fishing holes. Their search tools are like a seasoned guide helping you narrow down what you want. Land.com isn't just about buying and selling. It's about finding a place to hunt, fish, explore, or simply sit by a campfire and listen to the crickets. So head over to Land.com today to turn one day into today, because trust me, there's nothing quite like the feeling of standing on your own piece of earth.
Moving on to the legislative desk. In California, the legislature is considering a bill that would require all gun owners to obtain liability insurance. Senate Bill 8 would require every gun owner in the state to purchase a homeowner's, renter's, or gun liability insurance policy that, quote, specifically covers losses or damages resulting from any negligent or accidental use of that firearm, including, but not limited to, death, injury, or property damage. The city of San Jose passed a similar measure last year in the face of overwhelming public opposition. Residents worried that insurance companies wouldn't offer the necessary coverage, and so far, I am unaware of any company that does. A coalition of hunting organizations have come out in opposition of Senate Bill 8, including the Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation, Ducks Unlimited, and the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. These organizations said in a letter that the bill would decrease hunter participation by making gun ownership more expensive, which would in turn decrease the conservation funding available through Pittman-Robertson tax. They also point out that San Jose's ordinance is being challenged in court on constitutional grounds. If you'd like to weigh in, the bill is set to be heard by the Senate Committee on Insurance on April 26th. In Oklahoma, House Bill 2355 would legalize the use of airbows during any open hunting season. Still don't know what an airbow is, so you'll have to tell me what you think about that. The legislature legalized the use of airbows during rifle season last year, but this bill would legalize their use during archery seasons as well. If you aren't familiar with these devices, apparently they're like the love child of a crossbow and an air rifle. They use pressurized air to fire what is essentially a crossbow bolt, and they can achieve far faster arrow speeds than a compound bow. They also use a trigger and an optic, so they can theoretically extend a hunter's effective range far beyond most archery hunters. Bow hunters object to the use during archery seasons because they're much easier to use and require far less practice than traditional or compound bows. Conservation groups have also come out in opposition to including air bows as a legal means of take because these products aren't subject to Pittman-Robertson excise taxes. Unlike the purchase of a bow or a gun, buying an air bow does not contribute to these conservation funds. Airbow maker Crossman has said they're working to include airbows under the Pittman-Robertson umbrella, but they've so far been unsuccessful. This bill passed the Oklahoma House with zero debate on a 77-17 vote. In a committee hearing, the bill's sponsor, Representative Eddie Dempsey, compared airbows to crossbows as justification for the new policy. Crossbows are legal to use in Oklahoma during archery season.
I mean, this air bow, air gun, whatever you want to call it, I call it air bow because it's shooting the same boat that my crossbow's shooting. It's no different, same size and everything else. And my crossbow is pretty bad. It'll shoot as far or further than some of these air bows.
All I can say is they must have a lot of deer that they want dead in Oklahoma. When pressed about whether he wanted to allow air bows during archery season, Dempsey seemed to suggest that he's open for amendments.
For clarification, are you intending for those airbows to be used during archery season?
That's a work in progress that we're going to have. So,
if you'd like to weigh in on this bill in Oklahoma, get in touch with your Oklahoma state senators about House Bill 2355. Over at the U.S. Capitol, a bipartisan group of legislators have proposed a bill that would triple the available funding for the Voluntary Public Access and Habitat Incentive Program. This is the only federal initiative that helps to create public hunting and fishing opportunities on private land, and this new legislation would invest $150 million over the next 5 years. The program has already opened nearly 1 million private acres to public hunting, fishing, and outdoor recreation, and interest in the program is growing. This money will allow eligible landowners to take their properties out of production and open them to hunters and anglers. Money is also made available to landowners to conduct wildlife habitat improvement and enhancement projects. It is also layered with other Farm Bill programs that have habitat benefits, such as Conservation Reserve Program, or CRP, and Wetland Reserve Easements. If you'd like to weigh in on this bill, get in touch with your U.S. Senators and Representative about the Voluntary Public Access Improvement Act of 2023. Also in Washington, D.C., a bill called the Federal Lands Recreation Enhancement Act, what I'll call the Recreation Act, is up for renewal in October. Public land advocates are paying close attention to this issue because private companies have used the Recreation Act, which was first passed in 2004, to make money from public land reservation fees. If you've ever used the website rec.gov to reserve a camping spot or a hunting permit, you might know what I'm talking about. Rec.gov is not operated by the federal government. It was built and is run by a private tech firm called Booz Allen Hamilton. That's B-O-O-Z, Allen Hamilton, whose current and former employees include many members of the intelligence community, including a minor historical figure named Edward Snowden. Anyway, only a portion of the fees you pay on rec.gov go back into the public land system. The rest of the money goes to Booz Allen, which I assume they use to control the weather or overthrow South American governments or something. The percentage that Booz Allen pockets varies, but Todd Chamberlain, who runs a website dedicated to the public lands and national parks, reported in a recent article that only $5 of the $15 he paid to enter Yellowstone went back to the park. The other $10 went to a reservation fee, which is code for Booz Allen. The good news is that the Recreation Act can be amended to make sure the money we pay to access public land is used to improve and maintain that land. It's probably a long shot, given how Washington works, but it's important that we contact our U.S. representatives and let them know we care about this issue. If you want to learn more, I'll post a few links to helpful articles over at themeateater.com/Cal. Thanks to our buddy Alex Tilney, who used to do a bunch of writing for Cal's Week in Review, for sending that one in. Moving on to the game management desk. Culling is one of the most controversial management strategies a wildlife agency can use. No one likes killing a large number of animals, including wildlife biologists, but sometimes it's necessary to maintain the long-term health of a species or habitat. In Montana, for example, wildlife officials recently approved a lengthy culling of the bison herd that usually lives in Yellowstone National Park. The harsh winter has pushed the 6,000-member herd to lower elevations outside the northern and western park boundaries. When this happens, state officials are allowed to permit bison hunting to keep the animals away from livestock. About 60% of the bison herd carries brucellosis, and ranchers don't want the bison mingling with their stock. Historic treaties with indigenous groups allow members of 8 tribes to hunt bison during these culls. This year, indigenous hunters harvested about 1,100 bison, which has sparked some controversy, according to the New York Times. About 400 additional bison were either sent to a slaughterhouse or to a quarantine site where they were held to determine if they are disease-free. Cam Shawley, the Yellowstone Park superintendent, told the Times that they usually don't want to see that many bison taken out of the herd, but the last few years have seen very little migration out of the park. So the herd had grown well beyond 3,500 individuals necessary to maintain genetic diversity. Shawley estimated that even after his cull, the herd should reach north of 5,000 individuals after calves are born this spring. Which again, I think the tribes should be allowed to hunt in the park. That's just my opinion. I think it would do good for everybody. Anyway, moving on to New York. The state's only pheasant breeding facility was forced to cull its entire breeding flock after hundreds of birds died from HPAI, or highly pathogenic avian influenza. The New York Department of Environmental Conservation began investigating suspicious bird deaths at the Reynolds Game Farm, and the facility was placed under quarantine on March 21st. The farm, east of the city of Ithaca, near the Cornell University campus, raises ring-necked pheasants for release into the wild. Pheasants raised at the farm are distributed to volunteers for release through the Cornell Cooperative Extension Network, and about 30,000 adult pheasants are released on public and private land prior to and during the hunting season. Wild pheasant populations are at an all-time low, so the vast majority of pheasants hunting is done at these release sites using captive raised birds from the Reynolds Game Farm. It is unclear how this cull will impact the fall's pheasant hunting season. The Department of Environmental Conservation say they are, quote, developing a plan for how to provide pheasant hunting opportunities, but it's hard to imagine them putting the usual 30,000 birds on the landscape. Thanks to listener Jason K. for letting us know about this developing story, and I'll tell you what my friends over at Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever would tell the folks in New York: raise habitat, not pheasants. That's all I got for you this week. Thank you so much for listening. And remember to write in to ASKCAL, that's AskCal, at themeateater.com, and let me know what's going on in your neck of the woods. Also, go over and check out www.steeldealers.com to find a local knowledgeable steel dealer near you. They'll help get you set up with what you need, and they won't try to send you home with what you don't. Thanks again, and I'll talk to you next week.
I'm sure a lot of you guys remember the old ceremonial hunting tradition of eating the heart out of the first animal you kill. Meat from those organs are among the most nutrient-rich foods on the planet. You can get those same benefits your ancestors craved via convenient daily capsules from Heart and Soil. Find out more at heartandsoil.co. And remember, use code MeatEater for 10% off your purchase.
Outdoor adventure won't wait for engine problems. Things like hard starts, rough performance, and lost fuel economy are often caused by fuel gum and varnish buildup. Seafoam can help your engine run better and last longer. Simply pour a can in your gas tank. Hunters and anglers rely on Seafoam to keep their engines running the way it should the entire season. Pick up a can of Seafoam today at your local auto parts store or visit seafoamworks.com to learn more. That's seafoamworks.com to learn more.